Hey guys, I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes until we have some attendees join here.
At the moment, there's 7, just so you know. If you want it, maybe when it gets to 10, then we can just continue on from there.
Sure. If you can just prompt me, please, when we have 10.
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got around 10 now, so if you want to start it off.
Perfect. Thanks, Emer. You're all very welcome, guys, to today's Marco Academy. This is our 8th webinar, and the title of today's webinar is How to Optimize Your Cold Brew Menu. And we have 2 speakers today. It's Pfieffer from BKON and Adam Byford from Acacia Tree Farms. We're going to have 3 topics to discuss today. First topic is process. Second topic is market trends, and the third topic is menu optimization. So without further ado, we'll hop into our first topic, which is process with Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well today. So yeah, let's talk about the cold brew process. There's really, I think, 3 main kind of ways that cold brew is made. The first is standard immersion brewing. The second is sort of this small batch brewing that happens via more specialized equipment. And the third is commercially brewed and packaged product. And standard immersion brewing is really how cold brew got started, really in the back of the shops with the prep, steep, filter, dilute, fill, cleaning process. That's about 19 hours. But I think as cold brew started to become more popular, we saw the other 2 processes start to emerge more, with small batch brewing via specialized equipment like the Marco cold brew and other equipment that's out there. It's really grown in popularity. It offers a much shorter brew time than standard immersion, and is still done on premise usually. And then with commercially brewed and packaged product, this really started with cold chain kegs and RTDs. But advancements have really made this become a preferred option for high quality shelf stable solutions. The process generally is that the product is brewed, then it's processed and packaged, and brands receive a prepackaged product that comes in a variety of different formats.
Adam, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, I do. And again, thanks for having us, Marco team. A couple things just to touch on with the process would also be, I think a lot of customers are still learning as well what coffees to use. I know we didn't really touch on that, but there's always an assumption that to using a cold brew, I can use the same coffee that I use for hot, and that doesn't always translate well. So in terms of the processing, there are some factors to consider in terms of which coffee you're using, and also the byproducts as well. So some manufacturers, what they're doing with their grounds in their production is they're using them for upcycling as well. So it's kind of a post-process to the process to be able to, what can I do in a more sustainable way, where companies are using them for example, beauty products, fertilizers and things like that. For us in particular too, we use, and other manufacturers do as well, the actual coffee cherry, which is basically creating a drink called cascara. So a little bit more on the kind of post side of the process that manufacturers and operators are considering.
Cool. I'll just hop back to Lauren. Lauren, can you just discuss the formats that you spoke about in your previous segment?
Yeah. So on the shelf stable front, most of the time we're looking at products that are in formats like bag and box, bottles, cans, and then also what we're seeing is somewhat of an emerging category of pouches. We've seen some co-packers offering that type of solution as well. And generally they all, as you know, when they're processed to be shelf stable, one of the big advantages is that they're able to be stored ambient, stored and transported ambient. So you sort of reduce the need for the cold storage and cold transportation around the product as well.
Cool. Adam, could you elaborate any further on some of your options for upcycling coffee grounds?
Certainly. So again, kind of in a general sense, process-wise, whether you're roasting and grinding for hot coffee extraction, it's going back to a little earlier comment there, which is you want to find the right bean, right? So obviously we're getting the right product. Once we do our cold brewing, those grounds, what we do, we have some customers that actually buy the grounds to upcycle for other products as well. And then again, in particular, what I mentioned with the beauty products, it could be facial scrubs, could be put into lip chaps. So it's almost like a new, still very niche category emerging, where you're taking that product that would typically be waste. And even from the farm level, what happens too is typically the cherry, the cascara beverage, which is basically in the farm areas. Culturally, they've been drinking this product for years and not having that waste. So that now that's starting to emerge more into the plants and et cetera, to be able to actually use that product to create different beverages now. So again, mentioning the cascara, that's one that we work with, where we do keep the cherries and then we dry them, bring them in, and now we're able to actually mix them into either concentrate or powder format. But it's really anybody that's using call it the waste, or typically what was seen as the waste, is now finding different products to be able to produce and market.
Cool. And Lauren, just on the formats that you previously discussed, how would a brand choose among those options?
Yeah, so I think it really depends. It really depends on the channel application in a lot of ways. So, obviously a CPG product in a can or even in a bottle might be something that is utilized for grocery or convenience or on your own retail shelves. Whereas a bag and box, which comes in a variety of different formats, could be used for dispensing. It could be used for a CPG product, like a multi-serve fridge pack type of thing we've seen out there. And then bottles have sort of dual purpose. There's people who utilize bottles in retail or through wholesale, where you can just kind of pour the bottle of concentrate in, dilute it with water in a keg, and send it through a dispensing system. Of course, a bottle could also serve as a CPG product too. So I think there's a variety of different applications for the formats. But there's also, we have a variety of, like, when you choose which type of process to use, kind of which one may fit best for your business as well, which probably depends a lot on the focus and the size of your business. So BKON, my company, operates in the commercial brew space. So we know that some of the advantages with that are that the product being shelf stable comes with a longer shelf life. We also can support and help brands when they want to utilize one extraction, but they want to use it for multiple channels. So one extraction where a portion of it can go for a can and the other portion can go for a bib. So it's really sort of dependent on the size of your business. I think commercial brewing is ideal for brands with some larger amounts of locations, with large wholesale businesses, or plans to grow their wholesale business, or similarly brands that have consumer products or are looking to grow those products as well. And then, of course, many larger OCS operators are now encouraging brands to offer programs with shelf-stable solutions too. So it sort of depends on kind of what space you're living in, what the focus is for your company, on which of those different types of processes between in-house standard immersion or small batch brewing via specialized equipment or commercially brewed and packaged product, which ones you choose from.
Cool. Thanks, Lauren. We move on to our second topic now, which is market trends. Adam, do you want to kick us off with this section?
Certainly. So one of the things that we kind of wanted to do a little bit of a comparison on to for the attendees is, what's happening outside of the US. So I'm based in Canada myself. Our company has operations US, Canada, Middle East, and Malaysia. But I'm based out of the Toronto area. So in Canada, we are definitely in the cold brew segment. We're behind the US. The US has done a great job for years, to where if you go into grocery, for example, you're going to see maybe 20 feet in some instances of space dedicated to the cold category. So Canada, I would say, similar to probably what Ireland and the UK are like in terms of timing. We're definitely playing catch up, but it's good we have the US to be able to look at and see where we can kind of maximize our own programs here. But I would say trend wise, it did start, and Lauren kind of alluded to it. It started cold chain with kegs. So that started really with, in my opinion, there was a synonymous, I guess, approach or nitro and cold brew, because they would all come in a keg. So it's going to be nitrogenated. Trend wise, at least what we're seeing in our markets it doesn't now have to be nitro. And sometimes it's educating the customer that they're not one and the same, right? It's just a type of cold brew is nitro. We're also starting to do and see more with even sparkling, right? So now you've got, rather than nitrogen, you've got the CO2. The term cold brew is amazing for marketing, and it's appearing everywhere. We find I had a Jameson cold brew whiskey last week for the first time, and that was basically a Jameson with some concentrate, cold brew concentrate in the product. So the actual term is expanding outside of just coffee, again, into the whiskeys and things like that. Trend wise, I think also having a good, call it black based cold brew seems to be more popular, where now the customers are using flavors, right? So they don't have to go and to have all different produced flavors of cold brew. They can do with the many syrups and things that are out there. In Canada in particular, we're seeing some celebrity endorsements of cold brew. So one of the large coffee chains here now has, for the last few years, has had Justin Bieber as the face of cold brew for Canada, where it's actually called the Biebs Brew. So they're kind of leveraging this celebrity endorsement side of things to where, they're very artisanal drinks with cold foam. That's another area too, where we're starting to see the cold foam added on top through those kind of whipped cream type dispensers. As an ingredient as well, I would say. So not just as a finished beverage, especially with using a concentrate. We're seeing it used outside of the whiskey, but also in ice cream, milkshakes. So if anybody on the call has like a cafe and they do call it milkshakes or ice creams, now you can offer cold brew products there, because now you're using basically the cold brew concentrate as an ingredient. Hybrid drinks now are starting to emerge. We find in some of our markets where you may have a lemonade mixed with a cold brew as one that actually I personally enjoy, but and then really a push towards, call it clean caffeine. So that's definitely an emerging theme here, which is the energy drinks have such a huge footprint, but people are looking for caffeine, whether it be coffee or tea, especially in the cold brew space, to where it's a cleaner product to still get that caffeine. that they're looking for. And then I guess lastly, some regional type of trends. So in Canada, we've got some Canadian maple products that some of our customers are doing. It is, again, it's more in the flavoring side of things. The Middle East, we have some date flavored cold brews. So regionally, it's actually wide open for kind of any operator to get into offering regional and products that fit fit their channel and demographic. So
cool. And Lauren, do you have anything to add to the market trend segment?
Yeah, well, I think in general, cold coffee is one of the biggest industry trends that has existed really in the history of coffee. Over the course of the sort of different waves of coffee, you've seen different trends emerge. And I think you've also seen this shift happen from hot to cold in a lot of ways. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen that there's been reports that cold beverages account for 70+% of drinks sold at retailers like Starbucks, Dutch Brothers, Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. So I think it's safe to say that the future of coffee in general is very much focused in the cold category. But cold brew is really just one part of a larger cold coffee category. There's really a spectrum that exists that includes straight black cold brew, to brew plus ingredients, to concentrate with ingredients like Adam was referring to, and blended is one, and then of course espresso with ingredients as well on the cold side. But I think cold brew really served as this major catalyst for coffee ingredient beverages to continue to evolve with the use of cold brew concentrate. And of course, I think the growth of coffee as ingredient beverages has also really kind of brought us back to where we were in the 90s, with a lot of evolution and innovation happening around espresso-based beverages, but it's now translating to cold in so many ways. And of course, it's really popularized by the influential millennial and Gen Z consumer, who are really the major drivers of this category. I've seen a couple of different things that have talked about how 66% of Starbucks drinks are actually customized with espresso shots, and that ice shaken espresso has been their fastest growing category in the US. So this evolution where cold brew, I think, has really led to espresso-based drinks becoming more popular in the cold side. And that's really been a huge trend that we've seen. And I think that really this idea of coffee refreshment is going to be a dominant trend in the future. One of the challenges, of course, with cold espresso drinks is that you have to pull a hot shot of espresso. So there's a lot of innovations happening around high quality packaged extractions and dispensing equipment that I think are going to play this continued role in the evolution of the industry. We saw this across the show floor at the Specialty Coffee Expo. Cold espresso was really buzzing at that event, as well as different types of dispensing equipment that can pull from those types of bag and box that I referenced earlier as an example for dispensing on location. So I think there's really a very significant kind of transition happening and transformation in our industry that's evolving to this sort of dispensed packaged product approach.
Cool.
There's one thing, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add, Lauren made a great point on the espresso piece that I think would be relevant. Kind of what we're seeing in the concentrate is we have some customers that are saying they can't bring their espresso equipment because of power and logistics to certain events that they want to go and go promote their cafe, etc. And the typical, call it espresso or latte cold, right now, by using a concentrate, they're finding that's a great way for them not to have to say no to that drink, because number one, it's as Lauren mentioned, you're not pouring a hot shot, and in this type of, call it remote cafes, let's say, you've got the ease of being able to bring a a bib of concentrate to be able to make those beverages, where typically they would have to take that off the menu just because the equipment wouldn't be available, off site.
Thanks, guys. That will bring us up to our third topic then, which is menu optimization. We'll start off with Lauren this time.
Yeah. So I think just evolving more onto that thought where Adam just left off, I think concentrates have been used as an alternative to pulling hot espresso shots for sure. And there are concentrates that sit in that espresso TDS range. I think one of the things that you have to look at also is though, like, is it the quality that you are really striving for? So, as you're evolving and approaching that and thinking about your menu and utilizing concentrates, I would just say kind of take a step back and try to assess if that quality is matching the espresso experience that you want it to. I think as that continues to evolve and more innovations and more just growth in this category and more access to high quality extractions that provide that opportunity for an espresso program to scale outside of a retail location opens up a whole new option for not just menu optimization, but a whole program optimization, where you can kind of take that experience that you may have in a cafe and scale it to your wholesale business, where you can recreate that experience with a coffee program outside of your retail location, do it in a way that's really efficient, that doesn't require equipment, that doesn't require a lot of training for those wholesale customers that exist, which may include something like restaurants or bars, wherever your product is sold. And then similarly, if you can translate that to consumer products where consumers can actually take that and make their own creations at home, it really opens up a whole new opportunity. And it allows, I think, brands to consider new recipe approaches, new recipe innovations, even in store, that may have not even been practical to use because of an espresso machine maybe causing some sort of issue for them to be able to execute that drink really effectively. You certainly have, with all this innovation happening in the industry, all new opportunities to really expand and think through your recipe and bring it to new channels as well.
Thanks, Lauren. Adam, do you have anything to add on this topic?
Yes, one of the things that we always recommend and for our customers is to, especially in cold brew, because it is still very new for a lot of people, and it can be a little bit scary for them to find out whether they're going to get into it, especially if it's not a core channel. But most customers are realizing they need to get into it, but they just don't know how and in what format. So we always recommend, definitely consult, with your customer on what are they trying to achieve, like what beverages. So I'll use an example where some customers, let's say they want to do espresso martinis, and they look in their system, cold brew, and they find it. They may be buying a ready to drink product that isn't the right product for them to be able to make that espresso martini, when in fact they should be looking at concentrate. So we always, again, recommend looking at, what do you want to offer? Also operationally, is it better for you to do it in-house? Is it better for you to, have, again, supplied as a concentrate or RTD? As an example, footprint is also pretty key, because again, counter real estate is big. So again, just kind of looking at logistically, what type of equipment can be used. Also, is it going to be under counter or countertop? And then I would also say to look at how they would market. So to kind of optimize that menu is are you going to market it by referencing, the origin, as well, the type of bean, and because at least from what we find in the cold brew space, the majority of customers aren't looking for the most inexpensive, lowest quality coffee. They're looking for specialty coffee. So even if a location hasn't done, specialty before, if they are getting into cold brew, we definitely encourage them to kind of put that into their marketing to say, look, that this is what we're doing, quality product, etc. which would be, again, origin, even characteristics, some of the kind of flavor notes and things like that, we always recommend. And then lastly, I would say determine if getting into cold brew involves one beverage or multiple beverages, because that's going to also identify which format. So as I mentioned, is it going to be a cold brew RTD? Is it going to be for espresso martinis, milkshakes, desserts, smoothies, all these things? So that way they can, determine what product is right for them.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So now that we've covered those three topics, what I'll do is I'll move into a quick Q&A session. I've had some questions come in so far, so I'll just start shooting these off. The first one is, what industries is cold brew big in right now? And I suppose that's open to both of you guys.
Yeah. So, obviously we see it across coffee houses in the industry, but I think, we're starting to see it really evolve into more restaurants trying to create some more cold brew options, knowing that that is a huge trend. So whether that be quick service or other types of restaurants, we're definitely seeing it there. And I think, we also are seeing it in things like office coffee as well, starting to evolve too. Those are just a couple of them. I'm sure Adam has some more too.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lauren. Definitely some channels too that or I guess are not as mainstream, kind of going back to the clean caffeine type of kind of customer. So we're finding like fitness studios that are starting to look, and they're starting to carry cold brew, typically in a ready to drink format. Some that have the, call it smoothie bars, are also doing concentrates. And then again, to Lauren's point, the cafes, restaurants we find are the most curious in particular, because they hear the buzz all around, and they're doing hot coffee, and they're the ones that are mostly reaching out saying, okay, I got to get into cold brew, but somebody help me. What do I do?
Yeah. And I would add also, when Adam mentioned the espresso martini earlier, and that's become such a trending beverage. So I think bars are definitely looking at this too as options. So, how can they kind of create coffee-based alcoholic beverages? I think there's things like that where they're looking at opportunities and ways to do that in a simplified way too.
Cool. Adam, I know you just mentioned clean caffeine. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
Certainly. So it's more of call it a natural caffeine that would be coming, from coffee, or if it's cold brew teas, etc., where I guess the standard had been probably since the early 2000s, when the energy drinks, especially in North America, started to emerge. It was caffeine with ingredients that in some countries are banned. And I think there's some, I know, that are in the UK that certain brands they can't get in. So they're using, call it less healthy, forms of energy. And most people outside of taste, but probably primarily, whether it be hot or cold coffees or teas, are drinking them as a way to survive getting up in the morning and the afternoon. And so there's definitely the caffeine and the energy requirements. So again, people are starting to look at what's in that can of energy drink and saying, okay, well, let me look to get something that's a little healthier for me.
Yeah. So is that like, Adam, like the green coffee extracts, or that kind of, is that a little bit of what you're referring to? Yeah, there's a lot happening in that space. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great point. So that's right now, again, the bigger topic of conversation, but manufacturers are able to take the caffeine out and put them into beverages. It could be, a lemonade plus caffeine. Again, more in general, looking at more healthy forms of energy versus the typically unhealthy forms that are in most of the market.
Cool. Adam, being from Canada, have you noticed any differences between cold brew in Canada and the US?
Yeah, the first great question. First difference, because I love when I travel to the US because I can get a cold brew anywhere, which is amazing. Again, going back to how much more ahead the US is. So to that point right now, cold brew, an area where it's not readily available would be in convenience and gas in Canada. It hasn't gotten, essentially you'll have, iced lattes and things like that have been in the fridges there. Canada in general is definitely behind in terms of the execution and the trends. It is changing. We're starting to catch up there. But I would say the US just has a great variety of products and also readily available where Canada has not got to that point yet. This is really the first year that we've seen in Canada that the convenience and gas channel is getting into dispense, options, right? So playing a little bit of catch up, but I would say the Canadian consumer though does have a good eye on looking for quality product as well. So they're definitely the specialty, and a lot of it comes back to like what Lauren was saying in the early 90s sort of thing, where you've got an espresso based consumer that's looking for a quality beverage. So now that the cold's starting to become more readily available, the channel is only growing.
Cool. I have another question just came in. It's saying, in the winter months, how would you keep up the profits of cold brew?
I mean, I would say that, I do think that we see somewhat of a dip, but at least in the US, I think cold drinks have become much more of a year-round product. There's less of a seasonality to it. I would say the one thing that you can do is look at like a signature seasonal drink. So something that maybe plays off of the winter time varieties that you see out there. So maybe experimenting with some things that might be interesting flavors that you see throughout holiday seasons or things like that, to be able to just translate it to cold. But I think there's definitely less seasonality to cold brew than there was 5 years ago, for sure. People are drinking it year round.
Cool, thank you. Another question here, with the Cascara coffee beans, what's the benefit of doing this, and does it affect the caffeine content?
So yes, so Cascara it's the cherry, right? So it's got caffeine in it. And really the difference in benefits are, number one, you're upcycling. Because what happens in the farms is if they do waste the product, then what happens is they end up losing a lot of the land because they have to burn that land, which happens in some farms. But it essentially is, go back to this clean caffeine. It's a energy source. The main difference is it has no real coffee related taste. So it's more like a cherry, kind of based product. I know in a lot of the African countries, for example, they've been drinking, hot and cold Cascara for generations. It's just something that in the Western world we're starting to learn. But essentially the benefits are a caffeinated product that we're not putting those cherries to waste.
Okay, thank you. I have another question here. It says, is the difference between standard cold brew and cold brew concentrate just a ratio, or is there different types of brew methods or different temperatures?
Yeah, there's definitely different brew methods that people have. Different extractors have different kind of methods that they've honed. So I would say that's a big part of the difference that you need to kind of assess as you're looking at all the options that are out there.
Cool, thank you. Another question is, how do you scale cold brew production in a roastery? From the largest toddies, where do you start?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So first thing I would point out is in roasteries, so cold brew production is very different than roasting. So to really get to scale, companies like Lauren's and myself, this is what we specialize in. So my honest advice is to reach out to the companies that are doing the extraction and in larger scale, because really I would say cold brew, especially doing concentrate, it's more beverage production than it is coffee. I know that may sound a little bit odd or new to some people, but if a roaster's good at roasting, doesn't necessarily translate that they're going to be good at doing, concentrates and extraction. So again, my honest advice is to reach out to those that are doing that.
Yeah, I would definitely say the same. I think also when you consider different like certifications that exist for these types of facilities, like there's a lot that goes into it. So it might be worth kind of starting at looking at who's already doing it to potentially outsource that too.
Thanks, guys. And our final question here, guys, feel free to push any questions more into the chat box there, and we'll try and get them answered for you. But the final one that I have here was, if you were to give advice to anyone starting to introduce cold brew to their menu, what is the first thing they should start with?
My first and personal one would be start with a good product.
Yeah,
because it's number one, the product value. It's not a discount product typically, so it's on par to go with a good quality product out the gates, because the margins are still there for the operators, and there's a huge kind of going back to even Lauren's comments about the growth in cold and things like that, is the consumer has options and you don't want to lose that customer. We've seen some operators do what are clearly hot brewed iced coffees and try to sell them as cold brews, and you won't get that customer back.
no,
Right. So
yeah,
definitely launching with a good quality product that the format, whether it be concentrate or ready to drink, is something that is operationally sound for your business.
yeah. Yeah, and I think most people, when they start out, really look at testing within, with the standard immersion method, so they can really truly understand what exists there, or what outcome you're going to have, especially if you're looking at a retail shop and starting sales there. That's a pretty kind of low cost way to get into the game and test it, and then see how your program evolves and how you're going to take it to the next level at that point, where you might be looking to more of a partner as you grow or scale.
Thanks, guys. I have another question that just came in. Make your own pre-made concentrate, or hold on now, make your own or pre-made concentrate, sorry. What's the best for each business type / industry / size?
Yeah, I mean, as I was kind of saying earlier, I think, if you have multiple retail locations and you're growing, or you have a good wholesale business and it's growing, I think working with somebody who is able to give you prepackaged product, especially shelf stable, you're going to be able to scale that program much more effectively in that way. And so that, I think, is the best option for a sizable brand that's really looking to grow their program.
I agree. I think also in choosing which product, whether it be concentrate or again brew your own, you have to consider what the waste would look like if you're doing it in-house, because oftentimes it's either you've made too much or not enough, so you're going to have some lost sales. So even for locations that may not be large in volume, as long as you have that shelf stable product, if you're doing a concentrate, I think that's definitely the area that you would look at, because unless you're a fortune teller and you're making a batch or two batches, we're never going to know whether it's too much or too little.
Yeah, and I think you also have a lot of options for those who commercially brew. So different companies are going to have different like MOQs and things like that. So you really just have to kind of do your research and see who's out there and see who might be the right partner for the state of your business.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys. That is our final question. But guys, if there's anybody listening who does have any questions after, please feel free to reach out to Lauren and Adam. Their emails are here on the screen. And this webinar will be recorded and it will be available to view in your own time. It will be launched across all of our socials next week. So with that, guys, thanks so much, Lauren. Thank you so much, Adam.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. Appreciate you guys hosting this.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Have I ended this?